Welcome to RetroLogic episode 61. I'm Dan Caparello here with Sam Wagers. We are again Johnless this week. We are so sad. We miss John. We love having him on. Everybody just send positive vibes over to John and his family. Not an emergency, but just make sure you guys are keeping him in your thoughts and prayers. But in his place, we have the one and only older version of me, my brother Adam Caparello from the Retro Groove podcast. From the Retro Groove podcast, which is in the RetroLogic community. But RetroLogic isn't just a bunch of podcasts. It's also a community. You can visit retrologic.games, scroll down a little bit, and click that Discord link to join the least toxic retro bunch. Who wrote this copy? To join the least toxic bunch of retro gamers on the internet. Exactly. We have weekly giveaways, question submissions, collection, show and tell, and more. Please join. We would love to have you there to chat with us about stuff, or just lurk, because that's fine too. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
I feel like I have already seen you a bunch this week, but here we are again. We actually get to just specifically talk about video games now. Yeah, that's cool. Sam, how's it going?
Good.
Well, great. Then let's do our icebreaker.
Let's break this ice.
Let's break it. Sam and I are both still allergy driven, so if I have to mute myself, are you still doing it too? Yeah.
Yes, I've had this lingering cough for like 3 weeks now.
That's where I'm at.
I'm keeping it under control. I sucked down like 4 Ricola before I hopped on, so hopefully we're good.
Yeah, it's really just one of those wake up and have to stay up a while before it all drains.
Yeah, exactly. I've got my water, and I'm going to try to mute myself, but hopefully you won't hear any coughs in this episode. So for our icebreaker, we've got what you bought, what you played this week, and we're going to start with our guest, Adam. Adam, go ahead and throw that in there. Wait, hold up.
What?
Before we do that, sorry.
That's okay.
First,
Your show.
Do some Retro Groove stuff. Why don't you tell everybody listening about Retro Groove, what it is, and where they can hear it?
Well, that's very kind of you. So, RetroLogic has been around for a while, and what are we going over a year now, right?
Yeah.
So, me personally, of course, I'm very much into retro games, but my kind of primary focus in the last half a decade or so has more been collecting vinyl records and cassette tapes to a certain extent, and kind of working on my hi-fi system, getting into vintage audio. I now have a Technics stereo receiver that was manufactured at some point between 1978 and 1980.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just a really fun, slippery slope kind of hobby to get into, because you can get into it very inexpensively, but then if you allow it to, it starts to get expensive very quickly if you're into the vintage stuff. And people will say things like it sounds better to get the older hardware. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it has more of a soul to it. It's like the difference between the modern LED Christmas lights that you can like program and, multiple colors, schemes and all of that, versus the old, C9 multicolored bulbs that your dad had, that they just have a soul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have a Christmas glow about them that you really don't get with the LED lights.
Yeah.
Like I was driving around my neighborhood the other day, and everyone's got like those laser, you know what I'm talking about? It's like a laser projector that just puts like red and green dots in like, it's like, that doesn't look
the same.
Christmassy.
Yeah.
There's no soul to it. So anyway, let me get back to what we're talking about.
Why are we talking about
Groove,
Christmas lights?
Because it's an analogy.
I got it.
Welcome to Christmas logic.
Christmas logic.
It's Christmas logic. It's the time of year for that anyway. So
I might
Retro
follow
Groove.
suit. I might follow suit with you and put Jingle Bells behind the theme song.
yes,
Yeah, we'll see if I have time for that.
But Retro Groove is a podcast where we talk about the albums and artists that have changed the sonic landscape over the course of the years and have stood the test of time. It's about music and audio gear, and it's just a fun, casual time where we talk about music and what we've bought recently and various things going on in the music world. And it's not all that dissimilar to what y'all do. It's just focused on music. So that's a little bit more my wheelhouse. So thank you, Dan, for letting me kind of stand on your shoulders and launch that going out, because literally what happened was in September, we had something like 90 unique downloads. In October, we had something like 180. And I looked at the numbers, and for November, we're over 330 unique downloads.
Nice.
So it like keeps doubling every month.
Yeah.
So we're getting a little bit more popular, but we're still staying the same. And come check us out. It's a fun little podcast. Liam D, who I'm sure you'll hear on this podcast here and there.
He was just on a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, we partner in that. You know, it's not like we're equal partners in that, and he contributes, so much, and I wouldn't honestly be able to do it without him. And it's just a fun podcast, and the community it's attached to the RetroLogic community, so it's in the same Discord server, and it's all just fun. I like the kind of cross contamination that happens there, because we'll talk about video game music, vinyl records, and what video game music that is stuck in our head this week, and it's just so much fun.
Well, and on its surface, it seems like kind of a weird partnership, but there's so many similarities between vinyl
it's really
collecting and retro gaming. There's so many similarities.
So well.
Like, it's so easy to get into retro collecting cheaply, and then it just very quickly becomes your all-encompassing hobby, and then it just snowballs. And just like, buying a CRT versus buying an LED TV, like, what's better and why? And there's obvious advantages to both. So not only that, but just being a huge music fan myself, I'm so glad that you guys decided to launch and be part of the RetroLogic network and scene, because you guys really do have a great thing going. I love y'all's conversations. You guys come from it come to the conversation from different angles, and probably my favorite episode so far was the Tony Hawk soundtrack episode. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to this, go check that episode out of Retro Groove, because that's the one. That one I think is my favorite.
I think the title is a flippin' good episode.
Yeah, I'll have to look up the number.
In case you're looking for Tony Hawk.
Yeah, you guys are only 12 episodes, 11 episodes in, right? 13.
We just dropped 13 last Friday, and it's our holiday gift guide episode.
Yeah, that one was
where we
great.
run down different categories of our gift recommendations for the holiday season.
And the corresponding Spotify playlist that goes along with each episode is always awesome.
Always.
I've discovered so many great artists through that. So anyway, I'm a super fan of you guys. This is why I plug you, and I'm glad you're part of the network. So if you love anything about vintage music or modern music, and have good taste, you're going to want to listen to these, to Adam and Liam on Retro Groove.
We're across the board.
Yeah.
It's not just old music, you know what I mean? We do talk about newer artists too. It really just comes down to like the tagline says, it's about music that stands the test of time. And that could mean a lot of different things and be interpreted many different ways, but we try to stick to that.
You guys always,
and it's also a super positive. Like we always try to keep it very positive.
Yeah, you guys are definitely following in the RetroLogic pillars in that way, and I appreciate that too. And go listen to Retro Groove. Go check them out. See if it's something that you're into. I recommend it. So let's do the icebreaker now. But Adam, since you just talked, I'm gonna have Sam. Sam do his.
I want to hear Sam.
What he bought, what he played first. Go ahead.
Sam's
Sam.
voice calms me down.
Yeah, not too much this week. But I did, because it was like 20% off and already at a pretty reasonable price point on Steam, pick up the digital edition of Gloomhaven.
Oh, great.
If you've ever played the board game or seen the board game and wanted to play it, but realized it was like a $100-something board game, the digital version is like $35 and it was 20% off this week. So I picked that up. I'd never actually played it, but I'd seen people play it and I thought it looked really cool, but just didn't have like the time to dedicate to getting people together to set it up and learn it. So that's been pretty fun. I haven't gotten that far in it. I'm pretty much just like finished the tutorial at that point, but it's pretty cool. I do recommend it. It's been getting good reviews. Pretty glad I was able to pick that up. As for other stuff I've been playing, just kind of circling back to some other PC games. I played some Civilization 6 this last week. That's a game that I feel like I can always just kind of like fire up and play through if I've got like a lazy weekend or whatever. 'Cause it's kind of a big but like it's not like starting a playthrough of like a whole single player game, but I can, one game of Civilization can take like 3 to 8 hours depending on how you set things up. So that was fun. And I've also been playing more Enter the Gungeon. That's another game that just for whatever reason doesn't get old. I have played way too much Enter the Gungeon at this point. I actually have all of the achievements, which is not something I usually do. That's just how much I played the game.
Like, inadvertently got all the achievements.
Yeah, at this point, my goal when I play is actually to see how hard I can break the game. Because it's actually, once you have everything unlocked, and once you've like beaten the game multiple times, it doesn't feel hard anymore. But the thing I keep chasing is there's an item called the clone. And if you pick up the clone, then when you die, you start again on the first floor, but you keep all your items.
Whoa.
And so my goal, and that's basically how you break the game, because then you can get basically twice as many items as you would normally have, particularly if you've already picked up something that lets you get lots of keys so you can unlock every chest, and you get the clone. But it is theoretically possible to get a clone again the second time through.
Wow.
And I'm just waiting for that to happen.
What? That's
amazing.
That's amazing. So I tried Enter the Gungeon and it didn't seem like it was my kind of thing. Like the whole like bullet hell dodging situation, I've just always had trouble with that. But Sam, there is a game that came out this week that I don't know what sold me on it. I saw, I think it was Nintendo Life review. They gave it a 9, and it is very much in the same vein of like bullet hell dodging style gameplay, top down style gameplay of Enter the Gungeon. It's called Archvale, and it's from the publisher is Humble Games, but I don't know who the developer is. I should know that. But that's the gameplay essentially, is the same kind of like like your enemies are launching a bunch of projectiles at you, or they're trying to get you with swords or whatever, and you have a dodge and you have your weapons and you kind of just try to survive and make your way through. But instead of being a roguelike, it's a story driven like top-down Zelda almost. Like it's got a map that you can traverse, and it's got like checkpoints and towns and upgradable armor and craftable armor, and So it's kind of like I know it's kind of like it's kind of hard to describe because it's really not like anything that I've played before, but it does have some like very roguelite elements. Like if you die, you lose all your gold and you respawn back at back at one of the like save fountains or whatever, you know. So but that's about as roguelite as it gets. So it's I wouldn't even put it in the same category as something like Enter the Gungeon aside from the gameplay.
Yeah, I saw the clip you shared of that on Twitter, and it looked very much like Enter the Gungeon.
Plays
that's
very
interesting
much.
that it's structured differently.
Well, and I think that's what kind of like roguelikes most of the time bother me. Like I've played a few of them and I tried Enter the Gungeon. And usually I just get real frustrated and I want to progress more. I get that.
More. Like it's easy to get burned out. And honestly, I feel like if today I was starting at ground zero and Enter the Gungeon, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't have the patience to unlock stuff, to learn the bosses.
So the roguelikes that I can get into give you some kind of incentive, like there's growth after every death. You know, and that makes the next run a little more interesting or more attainable. And Hades did an excellent job with that. Hades is like probably my favorite roguelike of all time. Rad kind of did that as well. I love Rad. And those are really the only two that I've ever dug deep into that were like combat based and not like card based or something else. Anyway, so Archvale is on my list of games that I played this week, and I actually really highly recommend it. The story's cool. It's got really great art style. Everything is upgradable. Like I've been playing for an hour, and I have 9 weapons, and you just swap between them like on the fly. So it's just, and they're all totally different. So it's just the variety of everything is incredible, and I just highly recommend it. So the other thing that I've been playing this week is I got the Disney Classics Collection re-release from the Nintendo Dads to review. And so this version has the same as the older version, which is Aladdin and Lion King, but it adds Jungle Book and it adds Super Nintendo Aladdin. And so I've been kind of digging into that this week, just trying out all the different options and everything so I can do a little review for it. So I streamed it tonight. And some of you guys were watching me as I streamed it.
Yeah, that was a fun stream.
Yeah. And just some initial thoughts is that I can't stand the Super Nintendo Aladdin.
Oh, come on.
I'll never go back to that game.
Bad.
It's
just
bad.
Don't listen to him. It's a perfectly adequate game.
It's not good. It's not. I didn't like it at all. And maybe I was spoiled by the Sega Genesis version.
Yeah, your opinion is tainted by the fact
honestly,
that...
like I still haven't played the Genesis version, and I've heard people throw the Super Nintendo one under the bus, and I always thought it was like a console war thing. Like it was just people were like, oh, well, of course the Genesis version's better because I'm a Genesis guy.
I don't know. I'm a Nintendo guy mostly, and like it's Capcom, but it's not good. Like it's weird.
It's a different game.
It's very different.
But that doesn't make it bad.
I don't know, dude.
The Genesis version, Dan, is immortalized in your brain.
Yeah.
So because it doesn't... We played that game so much.
Yeah.
So the mechanics and the way that it feels is so ingrained in your brain that when you play the Super Nintendo version for the first time at 35 years old... it feels wrong, and that's what's happening, and nothing more.
Well, and I think that's interesting because
I'll take that.
I find myself defending a lot of games that people will say such things about, and I think it comes down to that like initial feels wrong attitude that I just don't have for whatever reason.
Right.
I'm always willing to like take the game as it is and learn. And I think the issue is a lot of people they come in expecting the Genesis game if that's what they played. And then when it's not that, they can't like rewire their brain to play a different game.
It is hard. I thought I tried to give it a fair shot, but apparently Yeah, the Genesis game's too ingrained in
Which is weird because you say it's hard, but this is one of the few games I remember actually being able to roll credits on when I was young.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't beat Mega Man X. I could beat this.
So, that's a thing. Played some Lion King. That is what it is. But this big surprise for me was how much I enjoyed playing the Jungle Book game. Like,
Jungle Book is amazing.
Man, it plays so well, and the animations are tight, and they look really cool, and they're fluid, and he controls really well. He jumps high, runs, stops. He has infinite bone throws, like an infinite projectile is nice in a platformer.
See, a lot of those animations were actually hand drawn, which is why they look so amazing.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, kind of like
they look like the Disney movie.
Yeah, kind of like Aladdin.
Straight up.
Sega Genesis Aladdin was hand drawn too. So I'm very impressed with that game. I want to play more of it. Like, I want to go back into it. It just plays so well, and it does have some issues. Like, it has the whole like, I don't know where the next platform is because everything looks like a jungle, and like sometimes it's a rock, sometimes it's a tree, sometimes you have to look up and grab a branch. Like, you just don't know. So there's a lot of exploring, which I don't necessarily mind, but I wish it was more clear, like a Donkey Kong Country or something. Some of the, like, you can only fire your weapon in 4 directions, and sometimes you just have to go diagonal, which you can't do. So that's a little annoying, but it's not very difficult. They're pretty generous with the extra hearts and stuff. So, yeah, really, really enjoyed Jungle Book. And overall, like, it's a pretty solid collection. You've got rewind, you've got save states, you have a watch feature where you could start the game by watching it, and then you could just pick it up whenever you want to pick it up. Part of me kind of wishes that you could start the watch feature mid playthrough. I haven't found a way to do that yet. That would be cool to, like, just get past a hard part and then pick it back up, you know? But I don't know if maybe that's just not possible for whatever programming reason. But it's a cool feature, and I have to try that out. But overall, for $30 on a cartridge, you get a Sega Genesis. So Jungle Book is the same like Lion King on Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, besides some like minor changes, like the music is different and some animations are different, but it's ostensibly the same game. So it's Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy Aladdin, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Lion King, Game Boy Lion King, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Jungle Book, Game Boy Jungle Book. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, $30. Really good. And they're all really well emulated, and all of your like visual settings, like border, non-border, sharp, soft, that all carries over to every time you play, depending and regardless of the game. So that's nice that they save all those settings. They just did a lot right with the collection, so I dig it. The museum is cool. So yeah, recommend that.
That has a lot more games than I thought.
Yeah, I
thought it was 3 or 4.
The Game Boy games are not good at all, but I mean, they're there, and they're fun to jump into for a little bit. My pickup this week was issue 50 of Nintendo Power, which is pretty necessary if you're doing anything with Nintendo Power, because that is, not only do they like celebrate all 50 issues of the magazine up to that point, but it's the Link's Awakening issue, and it has a nice gold cover. It's a beautiful issue. I don't own it. I'm just like, I have 48 and 49 and 51, but that's one of a little bit pricier issues, because most of the like mainline cover games are that way. It usually goes for about 21 to 30, and I snagged an auction, a low auction that nobody was bidding on, for like 12. So that was a nice snag. I'm happy about that. That should come in this week. Cannot wait to dig through that. That's it. That's all my gets and plays and all that stuff. So Adam, your turn, bro. Do it.
All right. Well, I have quite a bit, but
turn yourself up a little bit too. Sorry.
I have a lot, so I'm gonna try to get through it quickly here. I got my bonus, so like I went a little nutso. But first and foremost, I ended up on a whim, because it was available, I grabbed a Switch OLED, and I wasn't planning on getting it anytime soon, but I happened to walk into a GameStop and they had one available, so it felt correct. So I went ahead and
That's what happened to me too.
Yeah, it's just I was like, yeah, I'll wait. You know what I mean? I've got my Switch, it's fine. And like after the fact, I was so happy, and I was so glad that I went ahead and bit the bullet and did it, because it just looks so phenomenal. But I also am very, very happy to now be the proud owner once again of a Nintendo Entertainment System. So I was able to acquire Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, and Track and Field, that triple pack. That was the pack in with like the big, what was it called? The deluxe set. It had
it had the power pad,
zapper, and the power pad.
Yeah.
Which I had a bunch of friends that had a bunch of video games. I have never in my life even seen a Nintendo power pad with my own eyes. Super Mario Brothers 2, 3, Ninja Gaiden, Dr. Mario, Tiger Heli, Tetris, Super Spike VBall. And I was actually able to pick up some equipment to stream a lot of this. I picked up the capture box in order to stream, as well as an analog to HDMI upconverter. So if you're into that kind of thing, I was able to stream on the RetroLogic Twitch account some Super Mario Brothers 2 and some Ninja Gaiden. And I actually, despite not having played it for a very long time, I got farther in Ninja Gaiden than I ever have before. So on original hardware, which felt amazing.
Yeah, I bet that felt great.
So that was super fun. I also got kind of a great deal on a local Facebook Marketplace pickup. But I snagged an Arctic White original Game Boy Advance. And so I've got some plans for it. And I grabbed some aftermarket parts, and I don't want to reveal too much, but if you're into that kind of thing, stay tuned to the Discord, because I've got some plans. I've got some plans for this Game Boy. It's going to be a fun little project.
I cannot wait. I've seen a little bit of what you have planned, and it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. And then real quick, I on Black Friday got a few pretty good deals on some Switch games. I picked up Immortals, Fenyx Rising for like $15, and I grabbed Mario and Rabbids for I think like $11. So excellent games at Black Friday prices. I couldn't resist, because those are a couple Switch games that I hadn't picked up yet. And that's about it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I cannot wait to have you on the channel streaming more, just whatever cool stuff you come across or whatever you want to play.
Yeah.
You were mentioning you wanted to do a Donkey Kong Country stream.
Yeah, so kind of what I started was getting all of the, there's the little secret areas in every Donkey Kong Country level. And when you find all of the secrets on each level, the title of the level adds an exclamation point at the end of it.
That's right.
So my goal is to 100% Donkey Kong Country, which I've never done before. And this is like, me going back and playing the game for the first time in 20 plus something years. Mm-hmm. But you told me you can actually get more than 100%?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, you can get 101%.
But there's the bonus area that you can miss, I think, like permanently.
Oh,
there's something weird about one bonus area.
Yeah,
like you have to get it the first time because it's a bonus area inside another one, And I think if you don't get it the first time, you can't get it.
Yeah, something like that. You might have to
But
look
if
that
you
up.
miss it, you can still get 100%.
You can still get 100, but you can't get 101.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just
And I
gonna,
believe Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, you can get 102 and 103%.
That's true too.
well.
Yep.
well, all I care about is 100%.
Awesome.
I don't have the time to bother myself too much with getting more than 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be forthcoming once I can kind of perfect I was surprised it was actually easier to get the original hardware hooked up and being able to stream that. I'm having a little bit of issues getting the Switch streaming cleanly, but that'll be forthcoming.
Okay.
Unless I can somehow snag a Super Nintendo and Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, right. Well, if you want to borrow mine, let me know.
Sweet. I'll do that.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, let's jump into some Prices Retro before we do the topic. If this is your first time playing Prices Retro, this is how we do it. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games. You're going to guess how much those games are worth in total, dollars and cents. And whoever, after everyone guesses about the list, whoever's the closest to getting to the actual price wins that lot. Everyone has a list here playing, and then everyone guesses everybody else's list. And then we have some guests from our community that have submitted some lists. And there's also a ghost. Poltergeist, who always guesses 300. Yep. Because as one of our community members astutely pointed out, 300 is the number that looks closest to the word boo. So
It's true.
we didn't plan that, but that was a happy accident.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I've got art for him, so we're gonna try to get some stickers or something out there for Poltergeist.
I'd also just like to make it known that I am notoriously bad at this game.
Well,
That is all.
yeah, it is what it is.
So am I.
But I've got my list ready.
We'll see, guys. Sometimes you luck out on Prices Retro. So Sam, why don't you go first with your list?
All right. I got 4 games here. They are all complete in box, so keep that in mind. A little bit of a crossover theme. I've got Tatsunoko versus Capcom Ultimate All-Stars for the Wii, complete.
Oh,
Pokemon Conquest for the Nintendo DS, complete once again. Fighters Mega Mix for the Sega Saturn, complete. And SNK versus Capcom Card Fighters for the Nintendo DS, complete.
wow. Okay. I think I know some of these.
I know a couple of them, but I'm just bad with the values.
I'm going to go ahead and say 350.
350 for Dan.
Kind of trying to add up. I'm going to go with 435.
It's good. Solid. Some good
What
numbers.
was that again?
435.
435. All right. Well, the total is 189.77.
Oh, man.
What? There's a Sega Saturn game worth less than $200?
Yep. Fighters Mega Mix for the Sega Saturn is $50.39.
No way.
So, fun fact: this game comes up every now and then because it's like a Sega crossover fighting game. It kind of plays like Tekken or Virtua Fighter.
Oh.
But one of the playable characters is just a car from Daytona, USA.
What?
It like stands on its rear wheels and punches with its front wheels. It's hilarious. But the price on that is only $50.39.
I'm looking at a
According to price
video.
charting.
I'm looking at a video of this right now, and this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh my
SNK versus
gosh.
Capcom Card Fighters is $17.80. Pokemon Conquest is the most expensive on the list at $71.58. And Tatsunoko versus Capcom is at $50 currently, which I thought it was higher. I think I've seen it sell for higher, but this is what price charting has it at right now.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Well, Poltergeist won that round. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go next for y'all. We've got Counter-Strike for the Xbox, complete in box. Half-Life 2 for the Xbox, complete in box. Orange Box for the PS3, complete in box. And Portal 2 for the PS3, complete in box. Of course, these are all games by Valve.
I gathered that much.
Yes.
I'm going to guess $80.
Okay.
I'm going with 110.
Okay, that's good. I thought you were going to say $1 and play by like Price is Right rules. That's not how that works.
We don't. No, $110.
All right. Actual retail price is $52.70.
Dude,
Cheap games.
I am notorious for overshooting this stuff.
It's a cheap games. Yeah. Counter-Strike for the Xbox is only $7, $7.96. Half-Life 2 for the Xbox is only $10, 10 even. Orange Box for the PS3 is by far the most expensive at $25.91. And then Portal 2 for the PS3 complete in box is $8.83. And I would like to remind everyone that if you'd like to get into retro gaming, you could do a lot worse than an Xbox 360 or a PS3 right now. Because all the great games are $10. Like, just load up, man.
Yeah, the main thing is getting a system that works.
Well, the Xbox 360 S model is solid. And the later PS3s are also solid, but they also don't have the backwards compatibility. So those are my recommendations. But like, those games are not going to be cheap forever. That generation.
What was that total again? 50
sorry,
what?
$52.70. So those games are not going to be cheap forever. So go load up while they're cheap. All right, Adam, your turn.
Okay. I have a theme. And it's one of my favorite themes of all time regarding anything.
Oh my God.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
What?
So, number 1. Dr. Seuss' How the Grinch Stole Christmas for the Nintendo DS. Complete in box. All right?
Okay.
You can probably already guess the theme just from the first game.
I'm thinking games based off books, but like, why would...
No, come on.
It could be all Dr. Seuss.
You know what month it is. Come on. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Christmas Nights into Dreams for the Sega Saturn.
Yes.
Complete in box.
I actually don't know what that's worth.
Christmas Carol versus The Ghost of Christmas.
What?
I'm going to say it one more time and only one more time.
Christmas Carol?
Christmas Carol.
Is that a person?
Versus, yes. Christmas Carol versus The Ghost of Christmas for the Intellivision. Loose.
Goodness. What are you doing?
You know exactly what I'm doing.
Christmas Carol. No, I know what you're doing, but what
You know
are you...
precisely
Why are
what
you
I'm
doing?
Because last but not least, Days Before Christmas. Days is spelled D-A-Z-E. Days Before Christmas for the Sega Mega Drive. Loose.
Is that a PAL game or Japanese game?
Yes, it did not come out in North America. Days Before Christmas for the Mega Drive. Loose.
Great. Is that it? Is that all of it?
That's all of it.
Okay, awesome. Christmas Carol, get out of here.
Christmas Carol.
Yeah. versus the ghost, just not the ghost of Christmas past, present, just the ghost of Christmas.
Just the ghost of Christmas.
Yeah. It's the opposite of Santa. He steals stuff. I'm going to say 170. Sam.
I'm just going to go 200. I feel like Christmas Nights is probably worth a lot, but I don't think the rest are. I'm just going to say 200.
All right.
Okay. I'm adding this up just to be 100% sure.
All right.
Okay. The actual total for these 4 games, according to price charting, which is the rules that we follow,
That's what we do,
is $740.
No, man. It's Christmas frickin' Carol, isn't it?
Believe it or not, that's not really the worst offender here.
All right. Poltergeist is winning so far, so just hit me with it. What do we got?
Christmas Carol versus The Ghost of Christmas for Intellivision loose is $125.
Goodness. Jeez.
I'm doing this out of order, but whatever.
It's fine.
Dr. Seuss, How the Grinch Stole Christmas for Nintendo DS complete is $19. Christmas Nights Into Dreams for Sega Saturn complete is $95.
That's like basically what I guessed. I was like $100 probably. Yeah.
And I don't know what the story behind this is or why, but what that means is Days Before Christmas for the Mega Drive loose is $501.
No way, bro. Look at this game. Hold up. I'm on YouTube right now. This is
never came out in North America.
This is this level of the game is a shmup, but you're Santa flying in the sleigh.
I don't know anything about that. All I did,
this level of the game is your Santa running around a factory, and there's like gigantic hearts you're jumping on, and you're jumping on worms, and the worms turn into Christmas presents, and you collect them. Okay. This level is...
What else would you do with them?
Okay, this level is now Santa can breathe fire or something.
Of course.
And you're running around the North Pole. Let's see who's...
Sounds like this game's worth $500.
Yeah, I mean, I pay. I want it to come to NSO. Okay, and the bosses are... Here's Mr. Weather. Mr. Weather is a boss. What the heck? What is wrong with this game?
So the title to me implies...
The Timekeeper. The Timekeeper is a boss.
The title to me implies that Santa is high.
Yeah.
This is his... he's having some kind of fever dream, and this is... this is the Days Before Christmas.
The evil snowman is another boss. Like they probably had to come up.
Be an evil snowman.
They had to come up with so many different things that could be Santa's enemy, like time, the weather. Like seriously, wow.
Things that Santa Claus has to battle. To have his annual excursion. So. Yeah, I just went to price charting and searched for Christmas and just looked at everything that had Christmas in the title.
That works. That's in which, like, okay, here's a repro for, there's just a bunch of repros on eBay. Oh, here's some authentic ones, $300 for the Super Famicom version.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a Super Famicom.
$700 for the Mega Drive version. I mean, that's asking, but price charting is more accurate than that. Wow.
Yeah, it was 501 loose on price charting.
Today I learned that Days Before Christmas is a freaking thing. That made my night.
And never came out in North America.
Okay, so Andross from the Nintendo Pals podcast, which is also a podcast that you should go check out, has a Prices Retro list for us. So he has them spoiler tagged in Discord so we can play fair. And we are going to see what his games are. So here we go. The first one is... Hold on, let me pop this over here so I can do this right. The first one is Little Samson for the NES loose. Hey, how do you say that? Hagane, 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 the final conflict. Hagane, of course. My dumb American talking. Hagane, the final conflict. Condition is complete in box for the Super Nintendo. Okay, never heard of it, so great. Super Bowling loose for the N64. Okay. Pokemon Box for the GameCube. Loose. This is going to be interesting. Atravate, a sonar. Okay.
I'm like, what language are you speaking?
This is Atravete ASO.
The weird thing is, I remember this one.
For the Wii. Complete. I mean, at this point, I'm just going to guess $4,000 and just call it a day. Because I have a feeling I know what Andross is doing. And I could be totally off, but I know what Pokemon Box is worth, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to run up numbers in my head. I feel like it's going to be shy of 4,000. So I'm going to guess like 3,500.
Okay.
Seriously?
Go ahead, Adam.
Well, hold on.
Like let me be clear about the only educated guess that I'm making here is what Pokemon Box is worth and what Little Samson is worth. The rest of them are totally no idea. But I do need a number.
Man, y'all have really thrown me off. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. So
do you want me to list them off again?
No, that wouldn't help. Trust me. Okay. I'm tapping into something deep.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with $2,715.
All right. Okay, let's see if that paid off. We've got a grand total of $5,989. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. Little Samson loose for the NES is $2,091. Oh, he should have given us
Okay, but why?
I don't know. Little Samson is one of the wisdom
I
tree
thought
games.
it was less than that.
Super Bowling for the N64 is $728. Pokemon
$728?
Yes.
A bowling game for the N64.
I think there's something about it where it was like a rental and they only made like 100 copies. It's something crazy with that game. Pokemon Box loose for the GameCube is $509.
Loose?
Yeah. Oh, that game's incredible. $1,200 boxed, I bet. Go check it out. It's stupid. And it's not even a game. It's a tool.
It's not even a game.
No, it's the dumbest thing. I don't know. And then Atravete, a sonar,
is the most expensive Wii game.
Is $299.
No.
Yep. It's some singing game.
I quit. I quit this game.
And
I rage quit.
Did this game even come out in North America? Yeah, it did. There's ESRB. I knew he was going to do that because last time he tried to do all the cheap games and it broke because of the way that price charting works. So this time he redeemed himself with all of the most expensive games for these consoles. Here he goes. He says, the theme is, I went for one of the priciest games for each Nintendo home console. Fun fact, Super Bowling was a cross-gen release, hence the Super in the title, for Super Nintendo. Super Bowling was a Super Nintendo and N64 game. I think I brought up recently that I didn't think there were any of those for the N64, but there is one. There it is. Pokemon Box is used as a box storage expansion for the Game Boy Advance games. It was the only way in the U.S. through the Pokemon. It was only available in the U.S. through the Pokemon Center store in New York, through a now deleted website. Atrophied A Sonar is based on a Latin American teen soap opera, and it used a microphone and Just Dance-like motion controls.
Oh my god.
Okay, what is up with Super Bowling? I want to see this thing. Oh, okay, yeah. I've seen this. N64 and Super Nintendo. There is one crossover game for that system. There it is. And the covers look very different. Wow. Thank you, Andross, for that. That was very interesting. We have one more Prices Retro list, and then we have a couple of Spot the Fakes, and it comes to us from our very own Flightsy. Here we go. So he says the theme is Avatar. And usually he wants us to guess what the games are going to be based on his theme. But I feel like this one's pretty obvious, unless it's not. But it's either The Last Airbender or the Peter Jackson film. Or whoever, not Peter Jackson, whatever his name is. Titanic guy. All right. Game 1. You ready to guess? Y'all ready? Are you guys ready?
Well, I said I quit. I'm not playing anymore.
Adam's not playing anymore. So get rid of all of his scores.
Oh boy.
I'm just kidding.
Just kidding. All right.
Last one broke me.
That one was pretty rough. Okay. Game 1 is Subnautica for the PS4 complete. Okay. Dig Dug for the Atari 2600 complete. Little Inferno Pal for the Switch. Not Little Inferno Pal. Little Inferno for the Switch PAL region. Complete in box. No idea. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Wii. Complete in box. He's got something funky going on with this theme. I can't wait to see what it is. All right. Y'all go first. I went first every time. It's your turn.
What was the first game again?
Subnautica for the PS4.
Subnautica PS4.
Complete in box. Dig Dug for the Atari 2600. Complete in box. Little Inferno for the Nintendo Switch PAL region. Complete in box. And Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Wii. Complete in box.
I'm going to guess 115.
Okay. Adam?
So traditionally, what happens is I'm undershot by a significant margin. So I'm going to try to compensate.
Oh, bro.
And it's probably going to backfire. But I'm going to take what my initial answer would have been and multiply it by about 5.
Goodness.
Because that's about where I've been at. But maybe I'm overcompensating because of the last one, so I'm going to dial it down a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe multiply it by 2.5.
That's good. It's a good strategy.
I'd go with, I'm going to say, I'm going with $295.
All right. Maybe you'll luck out. I'm guessing 110. That's what I calculated. So you could redeem yourself with this round, Adam. Let's see what we got for a price. The total is $93.46.
See? You see what happens?
Wow. I'm sorry. That's rough.
So I may have messed up the spreadsheet. I'm fairly certain Dan wins overall just because that second to last round kind of wipes over everything else.
Okay, that's true. Thousands of dollars usually trumps everything else. But and I trust you with that. So we probably will not be able to declare a winner in this episode. We'll have to declare a winner on the next episode. So just stay tuned for that. But here's the breakdown for these prices. We've got he's making me figure it out. All right. So his theme was Avatar. So he chose a game that themed around water, one around earth, one around fire, and one around air. And so Subnautica is water at $15.99. Dig Dug is earth at $17.57. Fire is Little Inferno at $37.48. And Skyward Sword is air at $22.42 with a total again of $93.46. Very clever theme. I dig that.
See, I undershot Skyward Sword and then never should have multiplied it. I should have just gone with my original guess.
Yeah.
I appreciate that they're in the correct order too.
Mm-hmm.
From the intro.
Mm-hmm. Flightsy says, water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. I'm presuming this is all just the script from the opening of the anime that he gave me. So thank you, Flightsy. As always, a pleasure to read your Prices Retro lists on the show. Thank you so much. We have a couple of Spot the Fakes. If you guys want to run through them real quick. These usually don't take as long. We're trying to burn through these pretty quick because they're mostly just guessing games.
I'm happy to play anything that's not Prices Retro right now.
Well, sure. Let's do it then. So Andross has a Spot the Fake for us. He only has 3 guesses. Here are the games. Oh, so here's how we play. We get a list of game titles, and one of them is not real. All of them are real except one.
Okay.
So you have to guess which one you think is fake.
I got it.
Andross gives us this list. Sprouted Tangle's Map Fairy Voyage. Freshly Picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land.
Oh, I know that one's real.
And Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. So if you're a Nintendo fan worth your weight, then you already know which one this is. So my guess is Sprouted Tingle's Map Fairy Voyage. Sam, are you with me on that one?
I know the second one is real. I honestly don't know between the other two.
Okay.
The Balloon Trip is interesting because it sounds like something somebody would come up with, but I neither one of those are games I actually have heard of.
Okay.
But I do know that there's more than one Tingle game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know Freshly Picked Rupee Land is one of them.
Yep. That's the one that came to North America.
So what was the first one called? Sprouted
Tingle's Map Fairy Voyage.
Map Fairy Voyage.
And the other one is Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love.
I feel like Ripened sounds familiar to me. So I think it's the first one.
Okay. Adam, do you want to venture a guess here?
Honestly, the first one was my gut instinct.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with it.
And the answer is Sprouted Tingle's Map Fairy Voyage. He says he tried to match the style of the other titles using the fairy harvest lead and some random words that sound sort of like the following. So that was a great list because, those games are named as bizarrely as Tingle is a character. So
it also lacked kind of the cadence of the other two.
Yeah.
And there's also a certain level of innuendo to the Tingle titles.
And
that one was lacking.
I knew that the balloon trip style game was a Tingle game that exists. I just didn't know what it was called, so that one kind of gave it away for me. Thank you, Andross, again for your list. Our next Spot the Fake comes to us from you, Sam. Well, actually, let's do the other guest first, then you can jump in. The Ambassador brings us a list. Here he goes. Here is his game. Here is his list of totally real games, except for one of them. Tongue of the Fat Man, Iggy's Wreckin' Balls, Attack of the Mutant Camels, and Holiday Santa Revenge.
If that last one is real, it should have been on my Price is Retro list.
I agree.
Oh, man.
Anybody have a thought?
I know Tongue of the Fat Man is real.
I know Iggy's Wreckin' Balls is real.
So that leaves what? Santa's Revenge
and Attack of the Mutant Camels. Yeah. I'm going Mutant Camels on. I think. Yeah.
Same.
I would honestly be surprised somebody didn't make a game titled like Santa's Holiday Revenge.
I don't know. Wizard Pizza Party, guys. Remember Wizard Pizza Party?
That's true. That's true.
You learned a lesson.
It'd be an easy one to make up.
Yeah. All right. Should we see the answer? We've got, Holiday Santa's Revenge. Made up. Yeah.
Attack of the Mutant Camels is real?
Yeah, and per tradition, I'm going to now look it up. Oh. It is a vintage PC game. And this cover is haunting. Goodness. It's a like a meteor breathing camel, I guess. And then you look at the graphics, and it's like the most like mundane, like vanilla game starring a camel you can imagine. Because it's
when did it come out?
Oh gosh, hold on. Here's Wikipedia. It came out in 1983. for PC.
That makes what PC in 1983?
Yeah. So it looks like Atari graphics. That's what I'm going to compare it to.
Well, yeah, at that time, was it a Commodore game or what?
It was on the Atari 2600 as well. Here's the cover art for it. Yeah, man, that's something, huh? Wow. Well, Sam, why don't you drop us your Spot the Fake, and Adam and I will try to decipher.
Hold on, let me read this.
Yep.
I just looked it up.
Go ahead.
The horizontally scrolling shooter is similar to the Atari 2600 game The Empire Strikes Back, with AT-AT walkers replaced by giant camels.
Oh my god. Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Let's price charting this one too, just to round it out.
Oh, I was right. Released for the Commodore 64.
Whoa.
And Atari 8-bit family in 1983 by Llamasoft.
Atari 400.
I think that's the best
never
part.
heard of
Llamasoft.
$241 for the Atari game.
Wow.
$23 for the Commodore. That's what it is.
Oh, it's a Jeff Minter game.
Oh, what does that mean?
Jeff, he's a semi-famous developer dude. Like he didn't he?
Don't you have Wikipedia open? Just look it up.
He worked on, what's that game? Unity for the GameCube?
Oh, okay.
I mean, not like a super famous. He's not like Shigeru Miyamoto, but
I mean, I've never heard of him, but that's cool. Sam, give us your list. Let's do this.
All right. I have you'll figure out the theme. So my list is number 1, The Great Gatsby. Number 2, Last of the Mohicans. Number 3, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And number 4, Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, man. Okay. It's either It's either Fahrenheit 451 or Last of the Mohicans, and I don't know. I just don't know. Adam, what do you think?
I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Last of the Mohicans because I vaguely, very vaguely seem to think that I've seen a Fahrenheit 451 video game for like a very old console or something a long time ago. So that's probably the best guess I can give.
Last of the Mohicans, though, seems like it would have been like a PC game or something.
Right?
This is tough. I'm just gonna go with my gut and say Fahrenheit 451.
Okay, so I'm guessing that Last of the Mohicans is fake, and you're guessing that Fahrenheit 451 is fake, right? Right?
What?
Sounds like it.
Right. Okay. Good.
So it's The Last of the Mohicans. That's the fake one. Fahrenheit 451 is a like very early PC game released in 1984.
I don't know how.
2 and DOS.
Man, that was a throwback for me. I don't know how I knew that was a thing. Like I didn't. It was like a weird gut thing that I knew that existed. Because Last of the Mohicans would make a good video game. Like
it would. That's why I came up with it as a fake.
That was a good list.
I think personally, we should get a Codename Steam 2 with Chingachgook and Hawkeye in it.
Yeah, now you're talking. Now you're talking. All right. Well, if you want to submit a list for Prices Retro or Spot the Fake, you can either DM me on Twitter or DM me in Discord and say you have a list. And then I will give you instructions on how to submit said list. And so that is that. Let's move on to our show topic. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do that. The show topic this week is all about the hobby of collecting. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to the podcast and continuing to listen to the podcast and not just stopping halfway through like some insane person. This week's show topic, we're going to talk about the hobby of collecting. Just the hobby of it, why we do it. You know, Sam and I collect video games. Adam collects vinyl. And, you know, maybe there's other little smaller collections that we have that are either game and music adjacent or otherwise that we'll talk about as well. So the first thing that I want to get into is just like, what do you guys collect? And if you collect video games, you can be a little more specific about like what you know, consoles or what you're into. And then Adam, you're like a new game collector, so you can go into that a little bit too. But I'll start with you, Adam. Like, what do you collect? And we kind of already know, but you can go into a little bit more detail. And how did you get into it?
Well, okay. It gets kind of complicated because
it always does.
I've been a game collector before I was any other kind of collector.
Right.
I started amassing video games as early as, 7 years old or so when I purchased my original Nintendo. I want to say it had to have been 88 or 89 when I bought it with my own money after saving up for almost a year and a half because my dad would not buy it for me. So,
wow.
That's when I started to collect games, and I would get them any way that I could. I remember getting a handful. This was my first kind of bargain experience, but a local video store, this must have been 1990 or 91, something like that. They were offloading a bunch of their NES games and just selling or it was a rental shop right next to a frozen yogurt shop. And they were getting rid of their NES games, and that's how I got Marble Madness. I don't know if you remember playing Marble Madness.
I own a copy now because of it.
I bought Marble Madness for super cheap because the rental shop was getting rid of all their NES games. So, I caught the bug pretty early on for that. And then that never really stopped. I had that same NES and that same collection of games that just kind of continued to grow all the way through my adolescent and teenage years into adulthood. And then at some point, had to have been, 2005, somewhere around there. It just was not part of my life at that point. So I got rid of all that stuff. And honestly, why? At this point, I couldn't tell you really why. It just wasn't important to me at that point. And obviously now I look back and I wish I had a time machine to go back and tell my past self, dude, I know you don't care about this right now, but just don't. Just hang on to it.
Yeah.
Just put it in a box, put it in the closet, and just hang on to it.
I think
I don't know.
Almost
we all
of
have
us,
that.
Yeah, everybody has that story. Like, I wish I had a time machine. Tell myself to hold on to stuff.
Right. But I think at its peak, I had about, I want to say like 120 NES games. And I had, Super Nintendo, N64, bunch of different consoles. I had an orange N64 at one point, my favorite color. And I wish I still had all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that I'm a new game collector, but I'm getting back into it. Mm-hmm. After so many years of maybe, I don't know what you want to call it, being on hiatus from it. So I'm kind of starting fresh again, which is a terrible time to start fresh again with that because everything is a lot more expensive than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Which feels ridiculous, but it is what it is. It's something that makes you happy, and nostalgia is extremely powerful, and I like it. So why not?
Yeah. And as long as, like, it is more expensive now, but as long as you slow your roll and like allow yourself to not buy something just because you want it, but kind of like wait for a good deal or wait for a bargain, you can still find those deals. Like I rarely, if ever, pay the going rate for a game.
No.
And like if I do, it's because it's a cheap game that I'm very strongly emotionally attached to.
Yeah, it's got to be something important to you.
It's pretty rare I pay more for a game than it cost when it was new.
Oh, right. Definitely that. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. You think about, like you can't rebuy everything that you sold away, but like whatever you had, you didn't acquire that over the space of, a couple months or even a year.
Right.
You acquired that over probably a dozen years.
Yeah.
Many years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even because Adam, my story, your and my stories kind of intertwine and are almost the same.
Of course.
Because we grew up together and collected together and sold. I sold my stuff in 2008, just like you sold your stuff in 2005. But my recollecting was surprisingly. Like it's been about 2.5 years, and I've got a pretty good stash of stuff because it kind of just became. It was the only thing I was collecting. Like I didn't have any other hobbies. It's like this is the thing. What am I going to spend my extra money on? Just this.
Yeah, and my problem has been, so I've been collecting music for a long time, probably since I was about 11 or 12. I started buying tapes, and then in the mid 90s started buying CDs and had hundreds of CDs. And then in the late 90s started collecting vinyl, sort of propagated on the fact that, our parents kind of stopped caring about whatever vinyl they still had. Yeah. And me just listening to it being like, whoa, this is amazing. How did I never get into this before? And so, I still have a lot of those old records from mom and dad and from my aunt. So it's really difficult now because I've been collecting vinyl for over 20 years. And it has, at least in the since I started, last 20 to 25 years, it has never been more expensive to get into vinyl collecting. And a lot of people think we're in a bubble right now because, and I don't know if it's at least partially to blame that we have a supply chain problem.
Right. Because you'll buy, and actually some video games are like this too. You'll buy a vinyl that just came out, and once it's sold out, it's immediately on eBay for like 4 times the price.
Oh yeah. The thing with vinyl right now is, and I won't go too deep into this because this is a video game podcast, but it's pertinent.
We'll go more into that kind of stuff later too.
I pre-ordered a Lees of Memory, not even a new album. It was a repressing of an album that they put out in mono, and they remastered it and put it out in stereo. It sounds great. I bought it on my birthday in June, and it is now December 6th, and I do not have it yet.
Because of supply chain?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of different factors, but it's driving the production time up. It's driving the cost up. And it's a worldwide kind of problem, right? Because it's something that has become more and more popular. Very recently here, within the last year or two, vinyl sales outpaced CD sales for the first time since, late 80s, early 90s.
That's pretty incredible.
And yeah, it's a format that's seeing a boom. And for somebody, it's easy to be like, oh, all these whippersnappers coming up and getting into vinyl. I think that's cool, actually. Like, yeah. I was at a record store a few weeks ago, and there had to be like a 10 to 12-year-old kid on the same row as me looking through records. And this was not like new. They weren't looking at 21 Pilots or Taylor Swift. They were in like the classic rock section.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm glad you have that mentality. That's how we are too about gaming. At RetroLogic, we try to be multi-generational and allow the next generation to have their experiences with the old games. And to have their opinions and have their say about it, because it's as valid as ours. Even if we grew up with it, it doesn't mean that they have like a lesser opinion or whatever,
Well, to me, that's the real test of what makes something a classic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That it actually does still appeal to people of another generation. That it's not just because it's nostalgic.
Yes, that applies to music and games. That's an excellent point.
And Sam, let's turn to you, dude. What do you collect today, and how did you get into it?
I mean, it's really just games, to be honest, and like.
But for you, that's relatively recent, isn't that? Collecting,
like, and to some ways, I sometimes don't see myself so much as a collector. I mean, like, to the extent that like I play games and I play old games,
Yeah.
so I buy them and I have them and I don't get rid of them. So inevitably, I wind up with a collection. And I've held on to most of my games over time. One of the reasons for that is because when it comes to the console games that I grew up with, my brothers and I kind of just shared ownership. So we don't even know what belongs to whom. So none of us really sell it because that would just irritate the other two.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a stalemate there. And so the only games that I ever sold were like my DS and 3DS games. I sold several of those. And there's times I wish I didn't, but just looking back at like, okay, I was a broke college student at the time. Like that's just what you do.
Yeah.
And most of my interest in collecting is not really in getting that stuff back so much as still finding things I didn't know about.
Yeah.
That are from the past.
And that's kind of the evolution of collector as far as what I've seen for myself and for RetroLogic is that I'm at a point now where I pretty much have like, there's still some stuff that I played back in the day that I'd like to own, but most of it is in my collection now. So now it's all about who developed this game I love and what else did they make and what other weird, obscure stuff is out there that I've never heard of, or I played 1 and 2 of this series, but where's 3 and 4? So it's always about the kind of ever expanding hunt. So I totally get that, Sam.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say definitely games. I don't know if I would consider myself a collector per se of things like movies or books, but I mean, those are things I buy that I usually keep for a while. Fun other weird story. When I was still a teenager, for whatever reason, I got this idea into my head that I was going to do this a while. And every time I went to eat at a restaurant, I would steal a sugar packet. And I kept them all in a giant box, and I had a collection of just sugar packets.
Nice.
Because most restaurants will get like their own little label printed on them, so it's one of those things where it's like, this is like collecting for people who are broke, because you're not actually spending money on the thing itself. And eventually I got rid of the whole thing because I wasn't really all that attached to it, but I was at like a white elephant gift exchange for a Christmas party. So, like the concept of white elephant gift exchange for people who don't know is you bring a gift and you exchange them randomly, and it's all stuff nobody wants.
You're trolling.
So,
it's a troll.
At least it's supposed to be. There's always that person that brings something really nice, and then people feel
everyone
slighted
fights
that they didn't
over
get
it. Yeah.
The concept of the white elephant is it's supposed to be something that nobody would actually want.
You're supposed to troll everyone. Lying around. You're supposed to troll everyone.
So basically, I donated the entire sugar packet collection for that, and everybody was very confused as to why I had this. And that was the great payoff to the whole thing after like 3 years of amassing this.
Oh my God. And they're all different.
Yep.
That is hilarious.
Oh, to be at that,
I don't do that anymore, but that was a great payoff to it.
To be at that Christmas party.
I love it because I love like quirky collections, but I also love the fact that if you saw that like on a sitcom, you would be like, that's so unrealistic. Nobody would ever do that.
Yeah. Insane.
But I love the point that you made, Sam, because I feel the same way. I don't buy stuff like just to have it as a collection or a collector's item. I buy records because I like listening to them. And yeah, I put them in protective sleeves and I try to keep them in good condition, but I'm not going to like not open something just because it's valuable. And, I don't buy something just because it's valuable and I'll get a good deal on it. I buy what I want to play or listen to.
Man, I really, really wish John was here. because he has a little bit of a different mentality about collecting when it comes to keeping things in the box and buying things that you may not be interested in now, but you could get into. His Nintendo collection is pretty incredible. And
yeah, I've seen the pictures.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
And he loves it. It's his it's his pride and joy. It's his it's what he does for fun, to escape or to have some time to himself. And it's honestly incredibly impressive. Okay, we'll have to get him to weigh in on some of this stuff next week when he's back, because I'm super curious about what makes that tick for him. For me, I kind of had a thing growing up, and Adam, you can remember this, where I collected a lot of different things.
I remember more than anything else, which took up an entire wall of our room. You had an extensive penguin collection.
I had penguin statues and stuffies and figures and posters and books and
so many penguins.
Just a ton of penguin stuff, because penguins were the thing. And also and I collected Pez dispensers for a while. I had a whole shelf of Pez dispensers. Star Wars, the Kenner series of Star Wars action figures from the 90s. I remember that. Tons of those, man. And then plus just anything Star Wars related, really. I collected CDs like Adam, because that's when I started getting into music, was when CDs were big. I had a collection of different patterns of duct tape. I had 30 or 40 rolls. I think this was when you were gone, Adam. I don't think you were.
I don't remember that at all. So I must have been at college or something.
I collected. So that was the bulk of it, but it felt like a lot. And when Adam and I were not sharing a room, that room was full of stuff, But part of
mostly penguins.
Yeah, a lot of penguins. Part of what I found so interesting and fascinating and loved was making them look good on a shelf, So the Pez dispensers have the least intrinsic value of anything that I've ever collected. There's no reason in the world to own more than a single candy dispenser. But I had 112 of them. But they looked awesome on a shelf, all the little heads, and I had tiers so you could see the heads poking out from on top. And there's the Charlie Brown series and the Muppet series and the Star Wars series and the Batman series and the superhero series and the Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, any IP you could think of. And I have a few of them still.
You say they're not worth much, but there's some expensive Pez dispensers.
No, I'm saying intrinsic value, what you could actually do with the thing, not what it's worth.
I gotcha.
And yeah, I'm sure some of them might be worth money, but I have no idea where almost all of them are now. I have a few. Well,
the ones that are worth anything significant are super old, 60s and 70s.
I had a couple of those. I had a 1979 Mickey Mouse that I think at the time was going for $30 or $40, which was pretty high for that time. But I collected collections. Now that whole thing has kind of all poured into what I do with gaming, which is an entire shelf full of action figures of IP that I love, Nintendo Power magazines. I have a couple promo VHS tapes of games that I love. Plushies. I have some posters. I have boxes for games, consoles. And so, but it's all about the display for me. it brings me so much joy to walk in here and see my collection of action figures like beautifully displayed on the shelf. It brings me so much joy. And
Why?
my
Do you know why? Like, what does that do for you?
Is that the case for the games too? Because I kind of get it. Like,
yeah, it is.
With like figures or something though, like that's pretty much all you do with them, right? I mean, you just look at them.
But I mean, like, it wouldn't be as fun if I didn't take pictures of them and share them online. So there's certainly an element of it that is, and partially why RetroLogic exists is to allow people to safely share what they have without it being a contest or like a weird like one-upping thing, you know? Like I want people to be like, hey, look at this cool thing, and other people to just be like, hey, that's cool. Period. You know? So there is an element to it of that, but it is just something that I like to look at and see, and I can pick them up and I can play with them. I can put them back. I can't tell you, like, I don't think I've ever actually used any of my amiibo for their designed features. I just put them up there. So not really sure. Maybe that's something I need to dig into with my counselor. We'll figure that out. But that's what I collect and why I collect today, because it's the whole like Penguin, Pez dispenser, Star Wars thing, but now it's just all video games. Like, you know.
Well, I think it's easier to focus on one or two things. I for a long time didn't think that I even had the space or the spending money to get back into retro games.
Yeah.
Because I was, buying records all the time and still am.
NES is a good.
It's going to be an interesting balance. Yeah,
NES is a good place to start.
Get a lot of good stuff.
Because none of it's too crazy. As long as you stay, like, it depends on what you buy, but you can get a lot of really great stuff for cheap.
Yeah. And not to go off on a rabbit trail, but real quick, you mentioned you had a Mickey Mouse Pez dispenser from the 70s.
Yeah.
Because I've been scrolling through here. There is one Mickey Mouse Pez dispenser from 1979 that's worth $7,000.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the one I had. I just that would be me.
I just had to throw that in there.
I also used to own Cubivore, so why don't you throw that in my face?
Yep. Yeah, I don't want to go down that trail.
No, yeah, the stuff that I sold. So my next question for you guys, and this can be a fast question. Is there anything within your hobby that you decidedly do not collect? Like where you're like, I don't want to broach this area because either it's too expensive or I don't like it or whatever. Is there anything that you've said to yourself like no to like that specific part of it that you can think of?
I mean, I mentioned before, I'm usually pretty hesitant to spend like $60+ on an individual game.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure.
There's a few I've already broken that rule a couple times. Let's see. Silhouette Mirage was close to that. It was still under. But I mean, anytime I get to like $50 range, it's like, that's a lot to drop on one old game that I know is going to take me like 4 hours to play through.
I cheated a little bit on that because the most expensive game in my collection was a gift. So I can still technically say I never spent more than $70 on a single game, but that doesn't mean that somebody else didn't spend more than that.
Yeah, like Dokapon Kingdom, that's one that I dropped $60 on.
Right,
and
yeah.
I feel pretty good about it still, honestly, because that's a game I will play again.
Well, and that's only going to go up because of the condition it's in.
Well, I did open it. It's
still in probably in near new condition, even though it's been opened, which is, worth it makes it worth more. For me, there's some specific things that just are too expensive for me to even start looking at, like original release OSTs on CD are usually crazy expensive. most of the apparel items from back in the day were like only magazine order and insanely expensive now. Although there's this one Star Fox like bomber jacket that somebody got from like a contest that if I ever see one for sale, I would spend an ungodly amount of money for something like that.
Wow.
But like not as something that I collect normally. And it used to be used to be boxes. Like I used to be like, I'm not going to get like, it would be cool to have boxes for game consoles to display, but they're really expensive and it's just cardboard. But then I got a couple for really cheap. And then I kind of had a bug where I like anytime I'd see one for like 10, 20 bucks, I'd pick it up. So I broke that, but
well, I guess a good example, I would say, just because of something else I do know, my father collects bobbleheads. He's really into baseball.
Oh, cool.
And so, and his thing is he just keeps, and he has a complete collection that he keeps up to date now of every Cincinnati Reds stadium giveaway bobblehead. So, I mean, it's literally just a side effect of him going to baseball games. But, you know, he said he has no interest in collecting bobbleheads that aren't, you know, the stadium giveaway, the ones that you get for going to the game.
Wow.
Because they'll make commemorative ones that they'll sell, and those tend to sell for a lot because they're very limited quantity, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, he keeps that up to date, and, you know, he buys his tickets at the start of every season for every game that's going to have one. And if he can't go, he has enough friends who will go in his place and give him the bobblehead.
Yeah, because they know. So. That's partially like when you're a kid and people know that you collect penguins.
That's all you get.
You get a lot of penguins. So when like
for
at
sure.
least when you're a kid or if you have friends like that, like it's kind of easy to amass stuff pretty quickly.
Well, especially with something that broad.
Yeah.
Because, you know, video games are one thing and, you know.
Oh, and the average
music media is one thing, but you could get penguin anything.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, and Adam, you kind of started this when we were talking about my action figures. Why do we collect is the question. Right. So like the list,
that's a really good question.
The list that I came up with that was like, here's some reasons to collect things is nostalgia, a bit of escapism. Maybe you have a hoarding problem. Once you kind of start collecting, FOMO can be a real thing. And then just the community drives you to or they help you discover things, or they help you to be more aware of like, you know, what you could be doing or, you know, what's out there.
They won't shut up about Plock.
Never.
Plock.
Dude, in other spheres on Twitter, I'm the Plock guy now, and that needs to stop. So why, if you guys were to look inward, why do you think you collect what you collect? Just kind of a big question, but I want to know if you can come up with an answer.
So for me, I think honestly, I like music that, and I'm the kind of person that, and I've talked about this on the Retro Groove podcast, but I don't stick to just like one or two musical genres. Mm-hmm. I like music that makes me feel something, whether it be rock music or jazz or hip hop or pop, even anything. There's a certain just. Sometimes I'll listen to something, even if it's a genre that, you know, I'm typically really into. And if I don't feel anything, then I'm not interested. And it's a little bit different with video games, but not too far off. You know, I want to feel something. Mm-hmm. I don't just want to be, you know, twiddling my thumbs literally for no reason. I want there to be some kind of emotional payoff. Which is why games like Final Fantasy VII were among my favorite games for a very long time, because they're so, deeply emotional.
That's really interesting when I think about what I was talking earlier about how like you start collecting and then you get all the things that you had when you were younger because of that emotional connection. And now, then after that, you look for things that are like that, like same developer, same composer, same
because it makes company. You feel feelings.
Because you want to see that through line, like, oh, he started, just as an example, Shigeru Miyamoto started with Donkey Kong, and now here's how that became Mario Brothers, and now here's that's how that became Mario Odyssey. Like, you want to see that through line, and not just your specific nostalgia hits, but the arc of who created it and why and what their motivations were, and it gets pretty deep with that.
And it's the same with music. You can go down the rabbit hole of something as simple as the Beatles becoming Paul McCartney records, and these are the artists that he's worked with, and he's collaborating with a bunch of artists on his newer record, and these artists are cool. Like it's the same kind of thing where these different, I hate to even cheapen it by calling them rabbit trails. They're just connections, but you can have the same emotional connection to something completely new because it's connected to something that it means something very deep to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, what do you think? Why do you collect?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I buy games because I want to play them, and I keep them primarily because I think, well, I might want to play it again. And over time, that just leads to a large pile of games. At some point, you kind of accept, like, okay, I'm probably not going to replay all of these all the time. Like, I can't do that. But a lot of it is that, like, I'm not willing to sell it or get rid of it if I think I would want to play it again. And I do replay games I've played before. I think that if a game's really good, it's worth playing more than once.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question for you guys here is, what would cause you to sell everything and never look back? Is that even a possibility for you?
What would
I'm not going to live forever. So at some point you become old enough that you start to think, okay, like, do my children, do my nieces and nephews want any of this? If not, then I should just sell it.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't.
At some point that becomes relevant.
Yeah.
Now, prior to that, you may think I need to get rid of some stuff because you just need money, or you're moving and you don't have a place to put all the stuff.
Man, even
sometimes it's tempting just when you realize something that you bought for cheap is worth a ton of money, and you're like, well, I wouldn't pay that much for it now, so does that mean I should sell it for that much?
Yeah.
That's yep. It would be tough. It'd be tough.
I was going to say, like, literally the only thing I could think of was, the brink of absolute financial collapse. Like, if you don't sell your records, you're going to be living under a bridge. I think that would literally be
that would do it.
The only catalyst. Or, obviously, not just for me, but, a family member or something that's more important than a physical medium that I can purchase again later down the line. You know what I mean?
Well, so I'll bring up my dad again, just because he's 62 and he's kind of in that mindset where he wants to sell things and downsize. But he's also, still a collector. I mentioned the bobbleheads. He also collects baseball cards, like any baseball fan. But he's also kind of set a new goal for himself, which is he wants to have a complete set of Topps baseball cards for every year that each of his children and grandchildren is born.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of and like he kind of intends to like pass that on to us, I guess. Even knowing like we're not into baseball cards per se, but it's like, I'll keep the set of 92 baseball cards because it came from him,
Well, because again, it comes back to the emotional connection. It's not that, I would even, dare to say he probably doesn't care nearly as much about the cards themselves or the players on the cards. It's what that year represents,
Right.
and it's something he cares about. So it all comes and like you just said, you would keep them. Why? Because there's a deep emotional connection there. There's something that makes you feel something. And I think that's what I keep going back to at the end of the day is, if it's not something that moves you one way or the other, it's, well, what are you doing? You're a hoarder at that point.
I would say like I want to keep this stuff hopefully until I'm well into my like old age, after I'm gone, I would not care if my kids sold everything and like this was like maybe it's worth a bunch of money, like y'all please sell it, like I don't
for real.
I don't expect them to have the same emotional connection to it that I did, even if they are playing it as a kid. Like they probably won't because they weren't around for its inception or like the cultural hype around it. They're
Right.
into it because I was into it. So if it means something to them, they can keep it, but I'm not going to begrudge them for selling it after I'm gone. I'm not going to be experiencing it at that point, the baseball card thing seems like a very specific thing for each person. Like this is your year, so you would want to keep that. So there's something like that makes sense. But just because I owned it, I wouldn't want them to. But I don't think I have an answer to this question besides Adam's, where it's like, well, if it's sell the video games or lose my house, then probably the video games have to go anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So we have some community submissions. I asked the community about, what do you collect and why? And like, what's your current state of collecting and all that stuff. And do each of you have the notes open here?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go around the horn and read them because my voice is starting to disappear. So for me, reading like 2 pages of notes right now is probably not a good idea. But I will start. And it starts with Flightsy, of course. We have Flightsy says, is there some way your collecting habits appear to differ from most of the RetroLogic communities? I don't know. I feel like I'm more into action figures than most of the community. Like I didn't gawk at all at spending $80 on a box of Earthworm Jim action figures. Like I was like, yeah, that's a great deal. I'll take that. So I think I'm weird in that way.
Well, I'm the dirty heathen that'll just buy a digital re-release if it's way cheaper.
Right. I just want to play
I'm
the
not a real
game.
collector.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm there.
Yeah. And Sam, you're kind of right in that, like you're the way you collect is kind of interesting. Like, yeah, I own the game because I played it. Like, not because I'm collecting it.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Sam, do you want to read Well-Read Mage's comment?
The Well-Read Mage says, I'm currently collecting SNES CIBs, that's complete in box for the uninitiated. It's my favorite console, so sell me your CIBs.
Yeah, exactly. Well-Read Mage and I just did a podcast together about Star Fox, so go check out Magecast and hear me talk about Star Fox for an hour and a half. It was a great chat, really good. Adam, you've got $2 Heroes comment.
So $2 Hero says, when it comes to collecting, I've slowed down a bit. If I happen upon a weird Nintendo or OG Xbox game that I don't already have for a reasonable price, I'll certainly snag it up. I just recently bought some stuff off Mercari on a whim, and Lord knows this community has thrown me into a few impulsive purchases. See, mischief makers. But I've slowed down overall. I don't have as much time for the hunt these days, nor the disposable income. And I definitely feel that. That's true.
Awesome. All right. I've got Liam, our very own Liam D in the Discord, co-host of the Retro Groove podcast, says, my collecting is mainly about opinions and opportunity. I like options and opportunity. Of course, reading is hard. I like being able to keep my games, music, books, movies I love, or want to experience at my fingertips in a mainly legal fashion. That means maintaining functioning hardware and clean, organized media. Yeah, definitely having it on hand when you want to play it is a huge part of that collecting mentality, at least for games, for sure. Because a lot of games, it's very difficult to find a legal means to play them, you know. Go ahead, Sam. Sure. You got Nintendo Man.
Nintendo Man 89 says, collecting for me was always a want, but never something I could really manage financially. As a younger guy in my early 20s, I was sucked into the GameStop model of trading in for newer systems and games. But as I've gotten older, I just kind of realized I didn't need to do that anymore, and started building a collection. I haven't sold a video game in about 5 years now. I keep everything. My collecting strategy currently is systems I had growing up: PS1, GameCube, GBA, DS, as well as Switch. I also try my hardest to only buy what I find in my local shop so I don't go crazy with online purchases. But that rule gets broken on rare occasions. Also, having an 8-year-old who's very into retro gaming makes the hobby much more enjoyable.
Nice.
As he has a wide variety of questions about things. It's always a fun time when we can go to the local, just the two of us.
That's awesome.
I love that. All right, Adam, you've got Galaxy Wolf?
Galaxy Wolf says, I've always had a thing for collecting, but I prioritize convenience and ease of access. In terms of consoles, I have a DS Lite I can play Game Boy Advance carts on, a Wii I use for Wii and GameCube discs, a Wii U I use for Wii U games and Virtual Console.
That's right.
A 3DS for 3DS and DS games, and a Switch. That's really smart, actually.
Yeah.
We have an N64 and SNES, but it is much easier to play those games on Virtual Console or re-releases like Mario 3D All-Stars. Whenever there's remakes or modernized versions, I tend to prefer those over the originals. Also, I tend to skip out on cases and manuals for handheld games because I have a travel case and I tend to carry my games around in any way. The most important thing is that I collect games because I'm going to play them. I don't like to buy things that will just sit on a shelf and collect dust. I'm with you there, Galaxy Wolf. That's exactly how I feel. I like how he talks about basically, you know, finding the best or most convenient method of playing the game because it's the game that's the most important.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm with you there.
I'm totally with him on buying games without manuals or boxes. Like, if there's a fairly, like, I bought Thousand Year Door is still the most expensive game I've bought for my collection at like $75, and it was disc only because that game at the time was going for like $150 complete, which is like. There's not on any planet am I going to spend that much on a single game. But 75 for a game that I love that's really expensive, that seemed like it was well worth it. And then John printed me some very nice fake box art for it, and I like how that turned out. Yeah. So I'm totally with you there, Galaxy Wolf. If I can save a bunch of money, because I'm a bargain hunter at heart. So if I can save a bunch of money by going disc only or cartridge only, like, hell yeah. All day.
Yeah, it is interesting. I did buy Front Mission for the Super Famicom complete in box because it was like $11. And
there you go.
Like $9.75. So I'm like, heck, why not?
It's
actually got really cool art on the box.
That is something weird I found is I bought a couple of Japanese Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games complete in box for like a little bit more expensive than the cartridge would have been. So I don't know what the Japanese market.
If you get into Super Famicom, it's a lot easier to convince yourself the box is worth paying for because it's not that much more.
Yeah, it's weird how the US it's almost double some of the time for the box.
Man.
I'll read Oops's comment. We've got Oops from the community saying, I started collecting with the goal of getting all the old games I used to have. Now I prefer to collect handheld because I can play them while my kids use the TV to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and Bluey. Also, retro games and feature the most modern games with their built-in multiplayer don't have. Retro games that feature that's a weird sentence. I guess he's saying he likes how retro games have the couch co-op and split screen multiplayer. Modern games,
yeah, it's pretty rare to find. Like, I had such a hard time finding a good co-op game to play with my daughter, and ultimately we settled on Unravel 2. And that was really the only game that we could play together on the same screen that she even felt remotely interested in. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what he's going for. Yeah. And I feel that for sure.
A lot more options when you go retro in that way. And he says a pause button is a must for gaming with 3 kids under 5. And I feel that.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Flightsy says, okay, I made the broke college kid joke earlier, but I do have some more things to say. I collect because I like to play video games, and there's something really attractive about doing it on original hardware. I really care about getting these custom cases from customgamecases.com for all my cartridges because I grew up in the DS era, and having carts not in plastic cases feels wrong to me. Also, unlike a lot of people, I never gave up my childhood collection. In fact, since I'm in college, you could argue all I have is my childhood collection. This comes from the fact our family always treated our video games like DVDs rather than VHSs. He says he can elaborate if that doesn't make sense. Basically, we'd only give away games that were garbage. And I remember one time, as we were about to do that, I thought about all the Let's Players I'd seen playing garbage games and laughing about it. And I thought I'd want to do something like that someday. So I hid the giveaway box under my sweaters. That's why I still own a U-Draw towel.
That's a great story.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of ironic fun to be had playing a very, very bad video game. So I appreciate that.
It's like watching B movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Mystery science theater type stuff.
So good.
For sure.
And streaming now, like that's a whole thing. All right, Adam, close us out with Chris HL.
All right, last one from Chris HL 94. I think I'll have more time for collecting when my kids are grown up and out of the house. I feel that. I don't see myself collecting just to have something. I want to play and experience all the games. I just don't have time to do that right now. I hardly have time for regular NHL 94 games as is.
Yeah, definitely feel that, Chris. And that's also why we have Sam on the podcast, because he actually plays video games. So
most of the time.
Yeah.
So I had an interesting thought, and we're probably getting close to closing out.
Yeah, we'll close it out after this.
I'm kind of, obviously, as you know, I'm kind of getting older, and my oldest is, approaching those teenage years where they're in the very early stages of morphing into adulthood. And, I think about the kind of collecting that I was doing at around that age. And I'm like, man, what is she going to collect? Like, what does she have that's tangible? Because, the games that she likes to play, we're talking about Minecraft and Roblox and Genshin Impact. And like, there's no physical copy. I mean, I think you can maybe buy Roblox on the Switch, but she plays it on the PC and on her phone. So, these games that she loves and spends so much time with, and the music that she listens to is all streaming. So it's like there's not the physical media like we had when we were growing up. So it kind of makes me think, like, is she going to have this tendency to want to collect physical media? Because it's all digital now.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern with legacy media. Because
then you don't really own it.
Well, especially things that are server based. Like if they shut down Fortnite, nobody can play Fortnite ever again.
Exactly.
So the people.
Well, I think what we're gonna see is constant Fortnite remakes.
Maybe
there is that
in perpetuity.
Yeah, and like you're right, it's a different generation.
And that's the thing. It honestly kind of surprises me, and maybe because I missed the boat on WoW, I was never into it. But like WoW Classic is huge with a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's kind of,
and that seems strange to me because it's like the original game never actually ended, but then they're launching this parallel. Hey, if you want to rewind the clock 10 years, you can do that.
So here's
play WoW like it was when you remember playing it.
Without any of the quality of life improvements that we've done along the way.
And that kind of thing gives me hope for the future. But the problem is that you and I can go buy a copy of Dokapon Kingdom for the PS2, which it sold terribly and nobody bought it. But it's a fun game and it's interesting to play and weird and quirky. None of those games that are server based are going to be remade. You know, like the weird stuff or the broken stuff or the funny stuff. So that's really sad.
Unless somebody runs like a private server, but technically they'd be doing so illegally.
Sure.
If it's super under the radar, nobody's going to care.
But like, even if they do it illegally, they're probably still going to do it. So that's true. And, you know, that's one argument for emulation where it's like, well, like I'm preserving this because the people who do actually own this aren't doing anything about it. So there's like a moral high ground thing there for the purposes of history. So you can think about that whatever you want. But yeah, I think she's part of a generation that maybe just won't have that same itch for that kind of thing. Like she'll have nostalgia for things. But I was even talking about this with a friend of mine who's in his 50s and he has teenage kids. And he was saying that like they're listening to like old music. Like they do listen to modern stuff, but they're really into going back and like seeing the through line of like music history and like experiencing cultures from past decades, because post 2005 there's like not a lot of like culture, you know, like nobody's going to go back and be like, hey, like let's have a 2010 party. Like, well,
we said that about the 90s too. I'm old enough to remember.
All right.
People said the same thing about the 90s, and now the 90s it's the coolest decade now.
Okay.
So,
all right. I could
give it 25 years.
Maybe I'm wrong. But it just kind of seems
I hear what you're saying though. And I have hope that, because I remember being a teenager and that's when I started to, like I mentioned earlier, discover my parents' record collection. And like Elton John, who's Elton John? And listening to an Elton John, who David Bowie, let me listen to this. Boston?
Yeah.
What's this? That's a city. That's not a music group. And like have my mind blown by this music that was, even at the time, 20 to 25 years old. Now it's 40 to 45 years old. And it at 13, 14 years old, absolutely blew my mind. So
bonkers.
I think that is going to probably perpetuate.
Mm-hmm. And
I think, like Sam mentioned earlier, like that is what defines a classic. So there's always going to be classic music, mm-hmm. stuff that is popular, you know, even with people that didn't grow up when it was, you know, initially popular. And there's games that are also going to do the same thing that, you know.
Here's kind of to end so we can move on to the community couch. That's all well and good, but what's going to happen to the music and the video games that are not popular? That's kind of that's like the big question for me is like,
oh, there's always going to be niche communities that remember these things, but if something sucks, it's going to be, this is the argument that I always make when someone mentions something like, oh, music was so much better back in the 70s or back in the 80s, or, oh, video games were so much better back in this area. And I'm like, it seems that way because the stuff that was terrible just falls by the wayside and doesn't perpetuate into the future.
Right. True that.
Yeah.
All right.
And I mean, that's, there's some stuff that's maybe on that threshold that we can rescue by talking about it on a podcast.
Well, that's what we're all
like this.
Blocks of the world.
Exactly. That's what we're all about.
Single-handedly reviving Plock from obscurity.
We really are, and somebody's got to do it. Well, thank you guys for having that discussion with me. Really fascinating stuff. Thank you, community, for putting your thoughts in here as well. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do a quick community couch because we're already running at like almost 2 hours here, guys. Whoa. So see you guys in just a second. Welcome back. Adam, thank you so much for joining us this week. We definitely need to have you on more often because you're a host here at RetroLogic. You help host the community, you host a podcast. Why don't you again tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find Retro Groove, and then we'll say goodbye to you as we finish up Community Couch.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, obviously, Retro Groove is connected to RetroLogic. You can still find us and our announcements at retrologic.games. Our little corner of the server is still under the RetroLogic server, and I don't see that really ever changing. I like everything being kind of intertwined like that. You can find the podcast Retro Groove on your favorite podcast distributor format, whatever. We are dropping new episodes every 2 weeks on trying to hit it every other Friday because Friday is new record release day. And I am going to be streaming retro games almost every Sunday night, and that's about it. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and be on RetroLogic. It's so much fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam.
Thank y'all.
We are going to say goodbye to Adam right now, but we're not done.
Adios.
Bye, dude. We are not done with the community couch. We have, first of all, January is Odama Rama. This is all Sam's fault.
Thank you.
So if you want to, you can pick up a copy of Odama for the GameCube. Don't forget to get a mic as well for the GameCube. And in January, we'll start all of our playthroughs, and you can play along with us as we post our funny stuff on Twitter and in the community. And that's sure to be a ton of fun. And we'll have a community-led podcast as well in January to kind of push that back up. Got a few questions from the community couch. It's cold. It's cold here on the community couch tonight. I am in a, 59 degree garage right now, but this is where we do it, and that's just how it goes. So Chris HL94 asks, question for the show. What are your top 3 must-play games for the 3DS? 3DS.
Oh, shoot. I think I remember I wrote out a list before, and now I can't find it.
Is it in the community?
So, I think one of them was... No, it was just a little note I made for myself. One of them was Kid Icarus Uprising. Mm-hmm. One of them, I think, was... really don't know.
So one of the games that I played a ton of was Animal Crossing New Leaf. Now you have New Horizons now, so you may, but New Horizons and New Horizons is kind of like a new direction for Animal Crossing. It's very open with all the terraforming. If you want like the best classic version of Animal Crossing, New Leaf is excellent. Really, really, really good. Yeah, so highly recommend New Leaf as well. Do you have a second one there, Sam?
Yeah. Let's see. There was Kid Icarus. I think one of them was, I was actually going to say Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. Mm-hmm. I prefer that to the other two Fire Emblem games on 3DS. A lot of people would say Awakening. That's fine. But Shadows of Valentia, I think, hits a bit different. Awakening kind of represents what Fire Emblem would become after Awakening. Mm-hmm. Echoes, even though it came after, is a little bit more deliberately old school, but I think it's still more approachable than the older games.
Right.
Because of the way it's structured and it has like dungeons. And so it hits a bit differently.
Cool. I think you and I can both vouch for Codename Steam.
Yeah, that's one that I thought of. I don't think it topped my top 3, but I really wanted to give it an honorable mention.
Yeah,
right.
It's an underdog for sure, and you can get it for like $4, so you might as well.
You fight aliens for Abraham Lincoln with steam-powered robotic weapons. It's
a tactics.
I don't understand how somebody can not like that.
If you liked Mario versus Rabbids, you'd like Codename Steam. It's a tactics game.
Yeah, so. just go watch the sing-along trailer. That'll sell you on it. Just Google it.
Amazing.
Codename Steam sing-along trailer.
So good. And then I think the other game that I spent the most time with would be like Pokemon X and Y. That was the game that got me kind of back into Pokemon. So definitely that one. Yeah. Those are my 3, I think.
Etrian Odyssey.
Etrian Odyssey.
Series, but Etrian Odyssey 4, I think, is the one I'd recommend the most.
I had a hard time.
That is a very quintessentially 3DS game. I don't know if we're going to see it again because it was kind of built around dual screens.
Mm-hmm. I had a little bit of a hard time with Etrian Odyssey, but if you're a major RPG fan, I can see.
Yeah, it's totally not for everyone. I mean, This is the game that tells you, oh, you want a map? Draw it yourself.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Chris HL. We've got $2 Hero from the All In a Nintendo podcast. Another awesome podcast you should check out if you're into Nintendo stuff. Question for the couch. Do any of you know what the hit sensation BTS is? If not, please give me your best guess with zero context or limited working knowledge. P.S. I'm still not entirely sure, but if I've got to be a boomer, I'm taking y'all with me. Isn't BTS K-pop?
Is it? I thought it was just a variation on a BLT. It was bacon, tomato, and spinach.
That would work.
What do I know?
That would work. All I know is it's K-pop. The only other K-pop I know is KDA, which did the League of Legends music video, which was pretty cool. That's all the context I have. I'm sure they're very talented. That's all I got for you, Seth. Sorry, dude. And then finally, we rounded out with Flightsy, who says, community couch question. If RetroLogic and a different podcast of your choosing switched hosts, which podcast would you switch with and why? I think both about your experience running the other podcasts and about who would get to inherit RetroLogic. Oh, if somebody had to inherit...
So is this who do I want to host RetroLogic with me instead of you and John? Or is this what other podcast do I want to be on instead of RetroLogic?
Kind of both. Like, who do I want to inherit RetroLogic, which is hard for me because this is my baby. I would feel pretty good giving it to the guys at All In because I know that Seth has an eye for retro and knows how to run a positive community.
That's a good choice.
I also might go with somebody like Well-Read Mage because he and I recently connected and we have a lot of the same ideologies about community. But really it would be about preserving the community and the positivity and the non-toxic atmosphere than it is about any podcast per se. What podcast would I want to host? Something making a lot of money, maybe.
Well, I mean, you brought up the guys at All In, and I would totally take over Keep Nintendo Weird, and then just turn it into like Keep Games Weird.
Yes.
Talk about all these weird PlayStation games that I've been picking up.
Yeah, Keep Nintendo
like
Weird
Silhouette
is
Mirage and Dokapon Kingdom.
That's solid. That's a good choice. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'd love to do I'd love to get some like celebrity interview stuff going on. That'd be pretty fun for me. So I don't know who does that in gaming. Like, I don't know. Maybe if I had the pull of something like Retronauts, I could get some more like developer interviews, like retro developer interviews. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this will blow up and I can do that here. So I don't know.
Do it.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's blow up, guys.
Let's just get. I honestly think it would be the coolest thing in the world to talk to Ute Saito, the guy who made Odama, just because if you've seen him interview, like he says interesting things all the time.
Do you have to learn Japanese?
I think so. Yeah. Well, no, I'm pretty sure he lived in America for a time, so he can probably speak English pretty well.
Let's try to get something like that moving. That's a goal for next year, is get some more developer interviews. Let's see if we can do it. Well, that's about it, Sam. My voice is gone, and I'm ready for bed.
Yep.
How about you?
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, we're over 2 hours now. Let's close this thing out. So thanks for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at RetroLogic Games. You're also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. The link to that is in my Twitter bio. You can find everything, though, at the website retrologic.games. Go there, check out the merch, check out the blog, jump into the community. All the things are there. So, for me and Sam and Adam, who already left, see you next week with John, and have a great week, guys.
Goodbye.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm a lot better now after peeing.
Yeah, that's a thing. We we make fun of you a lot because of the first time you were on the show. You just left during a conversation to pee because you didn't know we were going to take a break.
Oh yeah, I still do that. I do that on my own podcast.
Take a break.
I don't know what it... Look, I am going to be 40 next year. And I don't know what has happened, but when I gotta pee, I gotta pee.
Okay.
I can't hold it for long lengths of time like I used to. Too many hours sitting in front of the Nintendo as a child holding it in because I didn't want to pause the game for 2.5 minutes.
I feel that.
Yeah, that's practice though, right?
My 6-year-old doesn't hold it though. He just pees wherever he is. So.
Oh, my 5-year-old does the same thing.
That's a thing. At least, I mean, I guess like physiologically, that's better for you. So I'm not too mad about it. But
that's a great way of.
There's the silver lining.
That problem.
Yeah. All right. Let's welcome to P Logic.
Yeah.
Let's jump back.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, I need to buy another mattress for my kid. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. we've gone through a couple mattresses with one of ours, but let's jump back in here.